Hi preschoolers, it's Miss Trisha, and today I am going to do a story with you, and then we're going to do an activity about counting, and more important than counting, being able to recognize different numerals when you see them, which is when you write down the number in a number form, that is the numeral. So when you see the number 1, I want you to be able to say, that's a 1. When you see the number 2, I want you to be able to say, that's a 2. Sometimes we get counting mixed up with that, but those are both important skills that we want to work on, okay? So, first we'll do a story, then we'll do some counting and some numeral recognition. Sound good? Okay. Today's story is Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons. This book is written and created by Eric Litwin, and the art is by James Dean. He was the creator of Pete the Cat. He's the first person who drew Pete the Cat. There's a lot of different Pete the Cat books, but this one's my favorite. Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons. Check it out. Inside the cover is this artwork of all these different buttons. Pretty cool. Here's our title page. Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons. And this is the dedication page. It tells us if they wrote the story for somebody special. Let's jump in. Make sure you can see my pictures. There we go. Pete the Cat put on his favorite shirt with 4 big, colorful, round, groovy buttons. He loved his buttons so much that he sang this song. My buttons, my 4 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 4 groovy buttons. This is the numeral 4, and this is the word 4. Oh no! Pop! One of the buttons popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? Let's count them. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. 3. 4 minus 1 equals 3. This is the numeral 3, and this is the word 3. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My 3 groovy buttons. My 3 groovy buttons. Oh no! Pop! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 1, 2. 2 buttons. There's the numeral 2. And the word 2. He had 3 buttons, 3, and then one of them popped off, and now he has 2 left. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My 2 groovy buttons. My 2 groovy buttons. Oh no! Pop! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? Just 1. 1. There's the numeral 1 and the word 1. He had 2 buttons, but you take 1 away because it popped off and rolled away, and now he only has 1 button left. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My 1 groovy button. My 1 groovy button. Pop! Oh no! The last button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? No buttons. So if you don't have any left, that number is 0. There's the numeral for 0 and the word up above. Because 1 button minus 1 button equals 0 buttons. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. Pete looked down at his buttonless shirt. And what do you think he saw? His belly button. Silly Pete. Look, right there's his belly button. And he kept on singing his song. My button, still have my belly button. My button, I still have my belly button. I guess it simply goes to show that stuff will come and stuff will go. But do we cry? Goodness, no. We keep on singing. What a fun story. I love that story. It showed us a lot of different numerals. It showed us the numeral 0 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 because he had 4 groovy buttons. One popped off, boop, and then he only had 3. And then another one popped off, boop, and he only had 2. One more popped off, boop, and he only had 1. And then when that one popped off, boop, all he had left was his belly button. Can you find your belly button? Good, it's still there. Great. We are going to do a project. I'm going to make it a separate video, that way it's a little easier to upload. So make sure you check out the second video from today because we're going to do a project where we talk about some number recognition. I will see you soon. Take care.